If you've ever been the person who says, "I'm fine," even when you're clearly overwhelmed, if you ever spent hours trying to solve everything on your own instead of asking someone for support, this might feel familiar. People who never ask for help often don't see themselves as strong. They simply believe they should be able to handle everything alone. From the outside, it can look like independence, responsibility, maturity, but underneath that behavior, there's often a much quieter story. It doesn't look like a big deal. Turning down help, saying you'll figure it out, caring more than you need to. But those small moments can reveal something much deeper about the way a person learned to move through the world. Because sometimes refusing help isn't confidence. Sometimes it's protection. We often imagine that asking for help is a personality trait. Some people are comfortable with it, others aren't. But psychology suggests it's rarely that simple. The way we respond to support is usually shaped long before we notice the pattern. Think about the person who stays late to finish every project instead of asking a coworker to share the workload. The friend who listens to everyone else's problems but never talks about their own. The student who struggles in silence because asking a question feels strangely uncomfortable. These aren't random habits. They're behaviors that often share the same emotional foundation. For many people, depending on someone else doesn't just feel inconvenient, it feels unsafe. Not because they believe other people are bad, but because somewhere along the way, they learned that relying on others came with a cost. Maybe help wasn't available when they needed it most. Maybe every request was met with disappointment. Maybe they were told they were being dramatic, needy, or too emotional. Or maybe nobody said those words at all. Maybe they simply noticed that everyone around them already seemed overwhelmed. Children are incredibly observant. They don't just listen to what adults say, they watch what adults carry. If a child repeatedly senses stress, conflict, exhaustion, or emotional distance, they often reach a quiet conclusion. I shouldn't make things harder. No one may have asked them to disappear emotionally, but they slowly learn to take up less space. That lesson can follow someone into adulthood without them ever realizing it. Eventually, asking for help begins to feel less like a normal human experience and more like breaking an invisible rule. So they become the reliable one, the independent one, the person everyone else leans on, and people praise them for it. They're called mature, responsible, strong. But what often gets rewarded isn't always what feels safe inside, because carrying everything alone is exhausting. The difficult part is that many people don't even notice they're doing it. When someone offers help, they automatically respond with, "No, I've got it." Not because they've carefully thought about it, because the answer has become automatic. Like muscle memory, the brain loves familiar patterns. Even if those patterns create stress, familiarity can still feel safer than uncertainty. Accepting help introduces uncertainty. What if they say no? What if you become a burden? What if they think less of you? What if they help today but remind you about it later? The mind starts calculating risks that other people never even notice, so staying independent feels predictable. Predictability often feels like emotional safety. And here's where it gets interesting. The real reason isn't always fear of rejection, it's often fear of losing control. Control isn't only about controlling other people. Sometimes it's about controlling disappointment. If you never ask, no one can let you down. If you never depend on someone, you never have to experience them pulling away. If you solve everything yourself, you never have to discover who isn't willing to stay. From that perspective, independence becomes more than a habit. It becomes emotional insurance. Not against failure, against vulnerability. Because asking for help creates a moment where your emotional well-being briefly rests in someone else's hands. For people whose trust has been shaken before, that can feel incredibly uncomfortable, even if the people around them are kind. This is why someone can have supportive friends, a caring partner, or understanding coworkers and still struggle to ask for help. The present isn't always the problem. Sometimes the nervous system is responding to memories that no longer exist. Psychology often refers to this as conditioning. The brain stores emotional experiences, then quietly predicts similar outcomes in the future. It doesn't always ask whether the situation has changed, it simply remembers what once kept you emotionally safe. Another surprising part of this pattern is how closely it's connected to identity. After enough years, being independent stops feeling like something you do, it starts feeling like who you are. You become the strong one, the capable one, the one who never needs anything. At first, those labels can feel comforting. They give people a role, a sense of certainty. But identities can quietly become cages, because once people expect you to always have everything together, showing struggle begins to feel like breaking character. You start protecting the image you've spent years building, even from the people who genuinely care about you. This creates a strange loneliness, not because you're physically alone, but because nobody sees the weight you're carrying. After all, you rarely let them. Many people who never ask for help become experts at appearing okay. They smile, they make jokes, they stay productive. They continue showing up. Meanwhile, their inner world becomes increasingly private. Not because they enjoy hiding, because hiding became familiar. Sometimes they even convince themselves they don't need anyone. But human beings are deeply relational. Psychology consistently shows that emotional safety isn't created through complete independence. It's created through trusted connection. The interesting part is that many people who avoid asking for help are incredibly compassionate toward others. They'll answer late night phone calls, they'll drop everything to support a friend, they'll reassure everyone around them that needing help is completely normal. Yet those same rules somehow never apply to themselves. That contradiction says something important. Deep down, they often believe other people deserve understanding more than they do. Not consciously, quietly, almost invisibly. And that's why this pattern is so difficult to notice. It hides behind qualities society usually celebrates: responsibility, reliability, self-sufficiency. Those traits aren't unhealthy by themselves. The question is what they're protecting, because the same behavior can come from two completely different places. One person carries things alone because they genuinely enjoy independence. Another carries everything alone because asking feels emotionally dangerous. From the outside, they look identical. Inside, they're living completely different experiences. That's what makes psychology so fascinating. The behavior is only the surface. The meaning underneath is where the real story begins. Once you begin looking beyond actions and into the emotional purpose those actions serve, people start making more sense, including yourself. Maybe refusing help was never about pride. Maybe it was never about being stubborn. Maybe it was simply a strategy your mind developed to reduce emotional risk. A strategy that became so familiar it eventually felt like part of your personality. It was never random. It was a pattern, and patterns have histories. The next time you notice someone insisting they're okay while quietly caring more than they can manage, remember that you may not be looking at someone who wants to be alone. You may be looking at someone who learned that being alone felt safer. There's a difference. And once you see that difference, you can't really unsee it. Understanding these hidden patterns doesn't immediately change them, but it changes the way you understand yourself. Sometimes awareness is the first time a behavior finally makes sense. If this explains something you've quietly recognized in yourself, there's always more beneath the surface. Human behavior is rarely random. It's usually a story the mind has been telling for much longer than we realize.